Welcome to this presentation. You are watching VLSI Design Lecture Series. Today, let us speak about non-bistable sequential circuits. So far, we have focused on a single type sequential element, the latch, and its sibling, the resistor. The most important property of such a circuit is that it has two stable states, hence the term bistable. The bistable element is not only the sequential circuit of the interest, the other regenerative circuits can be catalogued as astable and monostable. The astable acts as oscillators and can, for instance, be used for on-chip clock generation, whereas the latter, that is monostable, serve as a pulse generator and also called as one-shot circuits. Another interesting regenerative circuit is the Schmitt trigger, and this component has the useful property of showing hysteresis in its DC characteristics, and switching threshold is variable and depends upon the direction of the transition, that is low to high or high to low. So this peculiar feature can come in handy in noisy environments. Now let us focus on Schmitt trigger. A Schmitt trigger is a device with two important properties. It responds to a slowly changing input waveform with a fast transition time at the output, and the voltage transfer characteristics of the device displays different switching threshold for positive and negative going input signals. Where the typical voltage transfer characteristics of the Schmitt trigger is shown, the switching threshold for the low to high and high to low transitions are called Vm plus and Vm minus respectively. The hysteresis voltage is defined as the difference between the two. One of the main uses of the Schmitt trigger is to turn a noisy or slowly varying input signal into a clean digital output signals. And now you can notice that how the hysteresis suppresses the ringing of the signal. At the same time, the fast low to high and high to low transitions of the output signal should be observed. That is shown in this diagram. Steep signal slopes are beneficial in general, for instance, for reducing the power consumption by suppressing the direct path currents, and the secret behind the Schmitt trigger concept is the use of positive feedback. And now let us see the CMOS implementation of a Schmitt trigger. So this diagram shows the one of the possible CMOS implementation of the circuit. The idea behind the circuit is that the switching threshold of the CMOS inverter is determined by Kn by Kp ratio between the PMOS and NMOS transistors. Increasing the ratio of the threshold while decreasing it lowers Vm. Adapting the ratio depending upon the direction of the transition results in a shift in switching threshold under hysteresis effect. This adaptation is achieved with the aid of feedback. Suppose that Vin is initially equal to 0, so that Vout is equal to 0 as well. The feedback loop biases the PMOS transistor M4 in the conductive mode and M3 is off. The input signal effectively connects to an inverter consisting of two PMOS transistors in parallel, that is M2 and M4 as a pull-up network, and a single NMOS transistor M1 in the pull-down chain. This modifies the effective transistor ratio of the inverter, that is Km1 divided by Km2 plus Km1, which moves the switching threshold upwards. So once the inverter switches, the feedback loop turns off the M4 and the NMOS device M3 is activated. This extra pull-down device speeds up the transition and produces a clean output signal with the steep slopes. A similar behavior can be observed for high to low transition, and in this case, the pull-down network originally consists of M1 and M3 in parallel, while the pull-up network is formed by M2. And this reduces the values of the switching threshold to Vm. And you can consider a Schmitt trigger of the circuit. Suppose if M1 and M2 are sized at 1 micrometer and 0.5 micrometer, and 3 micrometer to 0.25 micrometer respectively. The inverter is designed such that the switching threshold is around VDD by 2, say for example 1.25 volt. And you can see the simulation of the SMI trigger, assuming that the devices M3 and M4 are 0.5 micrometer by 0.25 micrometer and 1.5 micrometer to 0.25 micrometer respectively. As apparent from the plot, the circuit exhibits hysteresis, as you can see in this diagram. So there will be a hysteresis in the circuit. The high to low switching point is VM minus is 0.9 volt and is lower than VDD by 2, while the low to high switching threshold is larger than VDD by 2. It is possible to shift the switching point by changing the sizes of M3 and M4. For example, to modify the low to high transition, we need to vary the PMOS device. The high to low threshold is kept constant by keeping the device width of M3 at 0.5 micrometer. The device width of M4 is varied as K into 0.5 micrometer. And now let us focus on a monostable multivibrator, monostable sequential circuit. A monostable element is a circuit that generates a pulse of predetermined width every time the quotient circuit is triggered by a pulse or transition event. It is called monostable because it has only one stable, that is quotient 1. A trigger event, which is either a signal transition or a pulse, causes the circuit to go temporarily into another quasi-stable state. This means that it eventually returns to its original state after a time period determined by the circuit parameters. So this circuit is also called as one-shot. It is very useful in generating pulses of known length. This functionality is required in a wide range of applications, and the use of the one-shot in the construction of the glitch registers can be remembered. And another well-known example is address transition reduction circuit, that is ATT circuit, which is used for timing generation in static memories. This circuit detects a change in the signal or group of signals such as the address and data bus and produces a pulse to initialize the subsequent circuitry. And the most common approach to implement the one-shot is the use of single delay element to control the duration of the pulse. And this concept can be seen in this diagram. In the quotient state, both the inputs to the XOR are identical and the output is low. Okay. A transition on the input causes the XOR input to differ temporarily and the output to go high. After a delayed TD, this disruption is removed and the output goes low again. A pulse length of TD is created and the delay circuit can be realized in many different ways. Such an RC network or a chain of basic gates. And a stable multivibrator has no stable state. It is shown in this figure. The output oscillates back and forth between the two quasi-stable states with a period determined by the circuit topology and parameters. And for example, delay, power supply, and so on. One of the main applications of oscillators is the on-chip generation of clock signals. And the ring oscillator is a simple example of a stable circuit. It consists of an odd number of inverters connected in a circular chain. Due to the odd number of inversions, no stable operating points exist, and the circuit oscillates with the period 2TPN, where N is the number of inverters in the chain and TP is the propagation delay of each inverter. The ring oscillator, composed of cascaded inverters, produces a waveform with a fixed oscillating frequency determined by the delay of the inverter in CMOS process. In many applications, it is necessary to control the frequency of the oscillator. An example of such a circuit is called voltage control oscillator, whose oscillation frequency is a function of control voltage. The standard ring oscillator can be modified into VCO by replacing a standard inverter with a current starved inverter like this diagram. Okay. And the mechanism for controlling the delay of each inverter is to limit the current available to discharge the load capacitance of the gate. So in this modified inverter circuit, the maximum discharge current of the inverter is limited by adding an extra series device. And you can notice that low to high transition of the inverter can also be controlled by adding a PMOS device in series with the M2. The added NMOS transistor M3 is controlled by the analog control voltage V control, which determines the available discharge current. Lowering V control reduces the discharge current and hence increases the TPHL. The ability to alter the propagation delay per stage allows us to control the frequency of the ring structure. The control voltage is generally set by using feedback techniques. Under low operating current levels, the current-starved inverter suffers from slow fall times at its output. This can result in significant short circuit current, and we solve this problem by feeding its input into a CMOS inverter, or better, a SCMET trigger. An extra inverter is needed at the end to ensure that the structure oscillates. Another approach to implement the delay cell is to use a differential element, as you can see in this diagram. And since the delay cell provides both inverting and non-inverting outputs, an oscillator with an even number of stages can be implemented. So this shows the two-stage differential VCO, where the feedback loop provides 180-degree phase shift through two gate delays, one non-inverting and other inverting, therefore forming an oscillation. The simulated waveform of this two-stage VCO can also be seen, and the in-phase and quadrature phase outputs are available simultaneously. The differential type VCO has better immunity to common mode noise, for example supply noise, compared with the common ring oscillator. However, it consumes more power due to the increased complexity and its static current. And a crucial decision that must be made in the earliest phase of chip design is to select the appropriate clocking methodology. The reliable synchronization of various operations occurring at a complex circuit is one of the most irritating challenge and integrating challenge facing the digital designer for the next decade. So choosing the right clocking scheme affects the functionality, speed and power of the circuit. A number of widely used clocking schemes are introduced, and then the most robust and conceptually simple scheme is the two-phase master slave design. The predominant approach is to use a multiplexer based register and to generate two clock phases locally by simply inverting the clock. The more exotic schemes such as the glitch registers are also used in practice. And however, these schemes require significant free running and must only be used in specific situations. An example of such is the need of negative setup time in Go, and that value must be stored in that register. However, these schemes require significant fine-tuning and must only be used in specific situations. The general trend in high-performance VLSI design is therefore to use a simple clocking schemes even at the expense of performance. Most automated design methodologies such as standard cell employ a single-phase edge-triggered approach based on the static flip-flops. Nevertheless, the tendency towards simple clocking approach also in apparent high-performance designs such as microprocessor. The use of latches between the logic to improve circuit performance is common as well. Thank you.